Admiral Vexithar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars through the massive viewing screen. He had commanded fleets for over 200 years, exploring the far reaches of the galaxy for the Calarian Empire. Today felt different, though. His sensors had picked up something strange from a spiral arm that no one had ever bothered to explore. "Admiral, we're getting those weird signals again," said his communications officer, a young Calarian with bright blue skin. "They're coming from the third planet in that yellow star system." Vexthar walked closer to the screen. The signals were unlike anything in their databases. They seemed crude and primitive, but there was something organized about them, like someone was trying to talk but didn't know how to do it properly. "Dr. Yulnara, what do you think?" he asked the chief scientist. The tall, thin alien adjusted her scanner and frowned. "The signals are definitely artificial, Admiral, but they're so basic, like a species that just learned to use radio waves. We're probably looking at a civilization that barely knows how to leave their own planet." Vexthar nodded. This was routine work. The Galactic Council sent teams like his to find new species and bring them into the galactic community. Usually, primitive species were grateful for the contact. They got technology, medicine, and protection. In return, they provided resources and workers. "Set course for the system," he ordered. "Standard first contact protocols. We'll observe from a distance first." The fleet of 12 ships moved through space toward the yellow star. Each ship was a masterpiece of Calarian engineering. Their hulls could withstand asteroid impacts. Their weapons could crack planets. Their shields could stop anything the galaxy could throw at them. Vexithar felt confident as always. As they got closer, their sensors picked up more details. The third planet was blue and green, covered in water and land. Perfect for life. But what surprised them were the metal objects moving around the planet. "Admiral, I'm reading artificial structures in orbit," reported the sensor officer. "They're big, really big." "Space stations?" asked Vexthar. "I don't think so, sir. They're moving in patterns like ships, but the energy readings are strange." Dr. Yulnara looked at her instruments with confusion. "The propulsion signatures don't match anything we know. They're generating gravitational fields, but with technology that looks primitive. It doesn't make sense." Vexthar studied the readings. These creatures had somehow figured out gravity manipulation, but their other technology seemed hundreds of years behind standard galactic levels. It was like finding someone who could paint masterpieces, but didn't know how to hold a brush properly. "So many ships are we detecting?" he asked. "Dozens in orbit, Admiral. But sir, there are more moving between other planets in the system, and some appear to be patrolling." "Patrolling?" That was unusual. Most primitive species stayed close to their homeworld. "Are they military vessels?" The sensor officer hesitated. "Hard to say, sir. They're heavily armored and seem to have weapon systems, but the design is unlike anything in our databases." Meanwhile, millions of miles away, Captain Hansol was having a boring day. He commanded the UES Incheon, a patrol ship of the United Earth Space Navy. His job was to watch the outer edge of human space and make sure no pirates or raiders caused trouble. Han-Sol had been in space for 15 years. He'd fought in the Titan mining wars, where human ships battled raiders who tried to steal resources from asteroid mines. He'd seen combat, but today was supposed to be quiet. "Captain, long-range sensors are picking up something weird," said his sensor operator, Lieutenant Park. "Unknown ships heading our way from outside the system." Hansol looked up from his coffee. "How many?" 12 ships, sir. Big ones. They don't match any design in our files." "Pirates?" "Don't think so, Captain. These ships are too advanced. The, energy signatures are off the charts." Hansol felt his stomach tighten. First contact protocols existed, but they were mostly theoretical. Humanity had been exploring space for 50 years and never met anyone else. Most people thought they were alone in the galaxy. "Red alert," he ordered. "All hands to battle stations, send a message to Earth Command immediately." The bridge lights changed to red as his crew prepared for possible combat. Hansol had 37 people under his command. The Incheon was tough, built to fight pirates and survive in deep space. But it wasn't designed for war against unknown aliens. Back on the alien flagship, Admiral Vexthar was getting concerned. His fleet had been detected. The primitive ships were changing course and moving toward them. "Admiral, the local vessels are powering up weapons," reported his tactical officer. "They're targeting us." "Already?" Vexthar was surprised. "Most species tried to communicate first." "Are they hostile?" "Unknown, sir, but their targeting systems are quite sophisticated, more advanced than we expected." Dr. Yulnara looked worried. "Admiral, I'm reading massive energy buildups in those ships. Their weapons might actually be dangerous." Vexthar almost laughed. His shields could stop anything a primitive species could throw at them. But something about this situation felt wrong. These creatures had gone from primitive radio signals to targeting his fleet in minutes. "Open communications," he ordered. "Standard greeting protocols." The communications officer worked for several minutes, then shook his head. "No response, Admiral. They're using communication methods we don't recognize." Meanwhile, Captain Han Sol was trying to figure out what the alien ships wanted. His communications officer, Lieutenant Kim, had been trying every frequency and protocol they knew. "Nothing, Captain. They're sending some kind of signal, but our computers can't decode it." "Keep trying," Han Sol ordered. He studied the tactical display. The alien ships were massive, easily 10 times bigger than the Incheon. If they wanted to fight, his ship was in serious trouble. "Captain, should we retreat?" asked his first officer. "No. This is human space. If they're peaceful, we'll talk. If they're not..." Han Sol left the sentence hanging. On the alien flagship, Admiral Vexthar was losing patience. The primitive ship refused to respond to communications and kept its weapons pointed at his fleet. "Admiral, recommend we fire a warning shot," suggested his tactical officer. "Standard procedure for dealing with hostile primitives." Vexthar considered. This. A warning shot would disable their engines without destroying the ship. Then they could board it and establish proper communication. "Very well. Minimum power. Target their propulsion system only." The flagship's main weapon charged up and fired a bright beam of energy toward the human ship. It was barely 1% of the weapon's full power, just enough to knock out the engines of a primitive vessel. Captain Han Sol watched the energy beam race toward his ship. "Brace for impact!" The beam hit the Incheon's rear shields and dissipated harmlessly. The ship barely shook. "Damage report," Han Sol called out. "No damage, Captain. Their weapon barely scratched our shields." Han Sol stared at the tactical display. Either these aliens were incredibly weak or they'd fired a warning shot. Given the size of their ships, he suspected the latter. "Sir, what are your orders, Yoir?" asked Lieutenant Bo-Ra from the weapons station. Han-Sol made a decision that would change galactic history. "Return fire, matching force, target the ship that shot at us but minimal power. Let's see what they're made of." The Incheon's main cannon charged up and fired a single shot at the alien flagship. It was meant to be a proportional response, a warning shot to match their warning shot. On the alien ship, Admiral Vexthar watched in horror as the primitive vessel's weapon tore through his flagship's shields like paper and punched a hole completely through the hull. Alarms blared as atmosphere rushed out into space. "Damage report," he shouted over the noise. "Hull breach on decks 12 through 15. We've lost main power to the port weapons array." "How did they do that?" Dr. Yulnara stared at her instruments in disbelief. "Admiral, that was their minimum power setting. If they'd fired at full strength..." Vexthar realized with growing fear that everything they thought they knew about this species was wrong. These weren't primitives, they were something far more dangerous. Captain Han Sol stared at his tactical screen in disbelief. The alien ship that had fired at them was now venting atmosphere into space. Emergency lights flickered across its hull as it tried to control the damage. "Did we just punch a hole through their flagship with a warning shot?" asked Lieutenant Bo-Ra from the weapons station. "Looks that way," Han Sol replied. He'd been trying to match their level of force, but apparently human weapons were much more powerful than expected. "Open all communication channels. Try everything. We've got..." Lieutenant Kim worked frantically at his station. Still nothing, Captain. They're sending signals, but we can't understand them. Han Sol rubbed his forehead. This was exactly the kind of situation that could start an interstellar war. Two species that couldn't talk to each other, both armed and confused. Captain, incoming message from Earth Command, reported the communications officer. Admiral Park's face appeared on the screen. She looked concerned. Captain Han Sol, we received your alert. What's your situation? First contact, Admiral. 12 unknown vessels, much larger than us. We've exchanged warning shots. One of their ships is damaged. How badly damaged? Badly, ma'am. Our minimum power shot went right through their defenses. Admiral, Park was quiet for a moment. Captain, the Sol is 3 hours away. Can you hold your position? Yes, ma'am. The aliens seem more confused than hostile right now. Good. Try to establish communication. Do not fire unless fired upon. We're sending linguist experts and first contact specialists. The screen went dark. Han Sol turned back to his crew. You heard the Admiral. We wait and try to talk. On the alien flagship, Admiral Vexthar was dealing with his own crisis. The damage control teams had sealed the hull breach. But 17 crew members were dead, and the ship's main weapon array was offline. Admiral, the primitive ship is holding position, reported his tactical officer. They're not advancing or retreating. They're not primitive, Dr. Yulnara said quietly. Their weapons technology is centuries ahead of ours. How is that possible? Vexthar studied the human ship on his screen. It looked crude compared to Kalarian vessels. The hull was scarred and dented, like it had been in many battles. But those scars meant experience, not weakness. Sir, incoming transmission from Kalarian High Command, announced the communications officer. Fleet Admiral Kethvar appeared on the screen. He was old even for a Kalarian, with skin that had turned deep blue with age. Vexthar, report your situation. We've made contact with an unknown species, Admiral. They appear to be more advanced than initial estimates suggested. How much more advanced? Vexthar hesitated. They disabled our flagship with what appeared to be a warning shot, sir. The silence on the communication channel lasted several seconds. Finally, Kethvar spoke. Are you requesting assistance? Not yet, sir. We're trying to establish communication. Very well. But Vexthar, if this species is hostile, do not hesitate to use full force. The Kalarian Empire will not be threatened by primitives. The communication ended. Vexthar looked at his damaged ship and wondered if full force would be enough. 3 hours later, Captain Han Sol watched as another human ship dropped out of hyperspace nearby. The UES Sol was a heavy cruiser, twice the size of his patrol vessel, and armed for serious combat. Captain Han Sol, this is Commander Da-Un of the Sol. We're here to assist. Da-Un's face appeared on his screen. She was younger than Han Sol, but had a reputation as one of Earth's best ship commanders. She'd fought pirates from the outer colonies to the asteroid belt. Commander, glad to have you here. The aliens haven't made any aggressive moves since the initial exchange. Good. I'm bringing linguist Dr. Moon aboard your ship. She might be able to figure out their communication system. Within an hour, Dr. Moon was working at a computer station on the Incheon's bridge. She was a small woman with gray hair who had spent her life studying languages. Captain, I think I'm making progress, she said. Their communication uses mathematical patterns, basic concepts like numbers and physical laws. Can you talk to them? I can try. Dr. Moon worked for another few minutes, then nodded. Sending. Now. On the alien flagship, the communications officer suddenly looked up with excitement. Admiral, the primitive ship is sending a mathematical sequence, prime numbers, then basic physics equations. Dr. Yulnara rushed to the communication station. Can we respond? Yes, I think so. For the next 2 hours, the two species slowly established basic communication. They exchanged mathematical concepts, then simple words, then basic ideas. Finally, Dr. Moon was able to send a simple message. We are peaceful. Why did you attack? The alien response came back. We did not attack. We fired warning shot. Your response was too strong. Captain Hansol read the translated message and felt relief. Send this. We also fired warning shot. We did not know your ships were fragile. There was a long pause before the alien response. Fragile? Your warning shot destroyed our main weapons. Hansol looked at Lieutenant Bora. What power level did we use? 2%, Captain. Standard warning shot protocol. Hansol closed his eyes. If 2% of their weapon power had crippled an alien flagship, what would happen in a real fight? The next alien message was longer. We are explorers from Calarian Empire. We came to make peaceful contact. We did not expect your weapons to be so powerful. Dr. Moon typed a response. We are humans from Earth. We also want peace. We are sorry for damaging your ship. Over the next hour, both sides began to relax. The aliens explained they were part of something called the Galactic Council, a group of species that worked together. The humans explained they had been alone in space and were surprised to meet other intelligent life. But the peaceful mood was shattered when Admiral Vexthar received an urgent message from Calarian High Command. Admiral, long-range sensors have detected your engagement with the unknown species. Task Force Hegemony is being dispatched to your location, 300 ships from 12 different species. They'll arrive in 48 hours. Vexthar's blood ran cold. Task Force Hegemony was the Galactic Council's largest military force. It was designed to destroy entire civilizations if necessary. Admiral Kethvar, the humans appear to be peaceful. They're trying to communicate. Peaceful species don't build weapons that can destroy our flagships with warning shots, Vexithar. The Council has decided these humans are a potential threat. Task Force Hegemony will determine their intentions. The communication ended. Vexithar turned to his tactical officer. Send a message to the human ships immediately. Captain Hansol read the translated alien message with growing alarm. Large military force coming to this location, 300 warships. They think humans are dangerous because of weapon strength. 48 hours. Commander Daun's voice came over the communication channel from the Sol. Captain, are they threatening us? I don't think so, Hansol replied. I think they're warning us. He was right. The next alien message confirmed it. We tried to stop them, but Council fears your weapons. You should leave this place. Hansol made a decision that would change everything. Instead of running, he sent a message to Earth Command. Admiral Park, we need the first contact fleet here immediately. We're about to have 300 alien warships arrive, and they think we're hostile. Admiral Park's response was immediate. Captain, you're ordered to withdraw immediately. Ma'am, if we run now, they'll think we're guilty of something. If we stay and show we're peaceful, maybe we can avoid a war. There was a long pause. Finally, Admiral Park replied, The first contact fleet will arrive in 36 hours. Captain, Hansol, Commander Daun, you are authorized to take whatever action necessary to prevent hostilities. Do not fire first, but defend yourselves if attacked. As the human ships prepared for the arrival of the alien fleet, Captain Hansol couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to discover just how different humans were from the rest of the galaxy. The aliens had been shocked by a simple warning shot. What would happen when they faced ships actually built for war? He looked at the tactical display showing the scarred hull of his patrol vessel. Every dent and scratch represented a battle survived, an enemy defeated, or a mission completed under fire. Humans had been fighting wars for thousands of years before they ever left Earth. The aliens were about to learn what that meant. Grand Admiral Korthval stood in the command center of the battleship Eternal Glory, watching as Task Force Hegemony moved through hyperspace toward the unknown threat. 300 warships from 12 different species surrounded his flagship. It was the largest military force assembled in 50 years. Admiral, we'll reach the target system in 6 hours, reported his navigation officer, a reptilian saurian with green scales. Quote. Val nodded. He had commanded fleets for 30 years and never lost a battle. The reports from Admiral Vexthar concerned him, but he found it hard to believe that primitives could pose a real threat to the combined might of the Galactic Council. What's our intelligence on these humans? He asked his staff. Commander Ziltek, a tall insectoid from the hive worlds, consulted his datapad. Limited information, sir. They appear to have been spacefaring for approximately 50 Earth years. Their technology seems inconsistent, some primitive, some surprisingly advanced. And their military capabilities? Unknown, Admiral. The only engagement was with Admiral Vexthar's reconnaissance fleet. One human vessel disabled a Calarian flagship with what appeared to be a warning shot. Korthval frowned. Calarian ships were among the toughest in the galaxy. Was it some kind of new weapon technology? Our scientists don't think so, sir. The energy signature was familiar, just much more powerful than expected. Like they've found a way to make conventional weapons incredibly efficient. Meanwhile, 36 hours away from the approaching alien fleet, Admiral Jin Ho received the full briefing on humanity's first contact situation. He stood in the command center of the UES Sejong, flagship of Earth's first contact fleet, reading reports. That would have seemed like science fiction just days ago. Confirm the alien fleet size again, he said to his intelligence officer, Commander Park. 300 ships, Admiral. Our long-range sensors picked them up when they entered our detection grid 2 hours ago. Admiral Jin Ho was silent for a moment. He had fought in every major conflict since humanity reached the stars. The Titan Wars, the Outer Colony rebellions, the pirate conflicts. But this was different. This wasn't human fighting human. This was potential war against an entire galaxy. How many ships do we have available, he asked. 47 vessels in the immediate area, sir. The second and third fleets are 12 hours behind us. Jin Ho studied the tactical display. 47 ships against 300 seemed impossible odds, but he'd learned long ago that numbers weren't everything in space combat. The question was whether these aliens fought like humans did. Admiral, incoming message from Captain Mi Young, announced the communications officer. Captain Mi Young commanded the stealth frigate UES Busan, one of humanity's newest and most advanced ships. Her face appeared on the main screen, transmitted from somewhere in the outer system. Admiral Jin Ho, I've been shadowing the alien fleet for the past 4 hours. You need to see this. The screen changed to show sensor readings from the alien formation. Jin Ho studied the data with growing interest. Captain, their formation is very rigid. No scouts, no advance units, just a straight line formation. Yes, sir. And Admiral, their ships are huge, but they're not built like ours. Heavy armor, lots of weapons, but they seem designed for fighting other ships just like them. What do you mean? Look at their weapon placements, sir. Everything's mounted for broadside attacks. They expect to line up and trade shots with enemies, who do the same thing. They're not designed for the kind of combat we're used to. Jin Ho nodded. Human ships were designed for flexibility, for fighting enemies who might try anything. Pirates, raiders, rebels, they all fought differently. Human military doctrine had evolved to handle any kind of threat. Captain, continue monitoring. Don't engage unless they spot you. Understood, Admiral. Back on the approaching alien fleet, Grand Admiral Korthval was receiving his own intelligence reports. Admiral, our scouts have detected the human fleet, reported Commander Ziltek. 47 vessels approaching our position. Only 47? Korthval was surprised. Are they retreating? No, sir. They're moving to intercept us. Battle. Formation. Korthval looked at the tactical display showing the two fleets approaching each other. The human ships looked tiny compared to his massive battleships, but something bothered him about their formation. Commander, analyze their approach. Pattern. Ziltek worked at his console for several minutes. Sir, their formation is unlike anything in our databases. Very loose, very flexible. And Admiral, they're not approaching directly. They're coming at us from multiple angles. Multiple angles? Yes, sir. Some ships high, some low, some from the sides. It's like they expect us to split up and fight individually rather than as a fleet. Grand Admiral Korthval had never encountered such tactics. In galactic warfare, fleets met head-on and exchanged fire until one side was defeated. It was civilized, orderly, predictable. Sir, should we adjust our formation? Asked his tactical officer. No. Maintain standard battle line. These primitives will learn how real space combat works. On Earth, President Lee Hyun-woo sat in the Emergency Command Center deep beneath Seoul, watching as humanity's first interstellar war was about to begin. General Tae-jin, head of Earth's Military Strategic Sea Command, stood beside him reviewing final preparations. Mr. President, all our fleets are moving into position. If this goes badly, we can evacuate the outer colonies. General, how confident are you in our chances? Tae-jin was quiet for a moment. Sir, we've never fought aliens before, but we've been fighting someone for our entire recorded history. These aliens seem to have been peaceful for centuries. That might work in our favor. You think they don't know how to fight a real war? I think they know how to fight their kind of war. Mr. President, the question is whether they can adapt to our kind of war. In space, the two fleets were now only hours apart. Admiral Jin Ho stood on the bridge of the Sejong, watching as the alien formation grew larger on his tactical display. Admiral, the aliens are broadcasting on multiple frequencies, reported his communications officer. Dr. Song thinks she can translate some of it. Dr. Song, Earth's best xenolinguist, had been studying the communication patterns captured from Captain Han Sol's encounter. She looked up from her computer with a concerned expression. Admiral, they're demanding our surrender. They say we must submit to something called Galactic Council Authority or face destruction. Can you send a response? Yes, sir. What should I tell them? Admiral Jin Ho thought for a moment. His next words would either start a war or prevent one. Tell them this. Humanity wishes to live in peace with all species, but we will not surrender our freedom to anyone. If they want to fight, we're ready. If they want to talk, we're ready for that too. The message was transmitted across space to the alien fleet. Grand Admiral Korthval read the translation and shook his head. Primitive arrogance. Commander Ziltek, prepare all ships for combat. These humans will learn to respect the Galactic Council. But as both fleets moved toward each other, Captain Mi Young in her stealth ship was discovering something that would change everything. Her advanced sensors had been analyzing the alien vessels for hours. Admiral Jin Ho, urgent report, she transmitted from her hidden position. Go ahead, Captain. Sir, I've been scanning their hull compositions and energy signatures. These ships are incredibly advanced, but they're not built for the kind of damage we can inflict. Their armor is designed to stop energy weapons like theirs, but our kinetic rounds will go right through them. Are you certain? Yes, sir. And Admiral, there's something else. Their ships are huge, but most of the space seems to be for comfort and storage. Our ships pack much more firepower into a smaller space. Admiral Jin Ho smiled grimly. Humans had learned to build warships during centuries of conflict. Every cubic meter of space was used efficiently, every system designed for maximum effectiveness. These aliens had built ships for show, for intimidation. Humans had built ships to win. All ships, this is Admiral Jin Ho. Prepare for combat. Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting to show the galaxy that humanity won't be pushed around. As the two fleets closed the final distance between them, neither side fully understood what was about to happen. The aliens expected a traditional battle between civilized species. The humans were preparing for war the way they knew how to fight it. In a few hours, the galaxy would learn that there was a difference. Grand Admiral Korthval watched his tactical display as the human fleet approached. 47 small ships against his 300 massive warships. The outcome seemed obvious. All ships, prepare to fire, he ordered. Target the largest human vessels first. Show them the power of the Galactic Council. His fleet moved into the traditional battle line formation that had been used in galactic warfare for thousands of years. Each ship took its assigned position, weapons ready to deliver, crushing volleys against the enemy. But as the human ships came within range, something unexpected happened. Instead of forming their own battle line, the human vessels scattered in all directions. What are they doing? Asked Commander Ziltek, staring at the display in confusion. The human ships were moving in patterns that seemed random, but somehow coordinated. Some dove below the galactic plane, others climbed high above it. Several groups moved to attack the alien flanks while others seemed to be heading for the rear of the formation. Sir, we can't target them effectively if they don't hold still, complained his weapons officer. Grand Admiral Korthval had never seen such chaos in space combat. All ships, break formation, pursue individual targets. But as his fleet began to spread out, Admiral Jin Ho sprung his trap. All ships, execute Alpha Strike, he ordered from the bridge of the Sejong. What happened next would be talked about in military academies for centuries. The scattered human ships suddenly coordinated their attacks, hitting the alien vessels from multiple directions at once. But it wasn't just the coordination that shocked the aliens. It was the sheer destructive power of human weapons. The UES Gwangju, commanded by Captain Wu Jin, was an assault carrier that had been redesigned from a civilian passenger ship during the Outer Colony Wars. It launched its fighter squadrons at the alien fleet like angry hornets from a disturbed nest. The alien pilots had never seen anything like human fighters. The small craft moved in ways that should have killed their pilots, pulling G-forces that would have turned most alien species into paste. But humans had evolved on a high-gravity world, and their fighters were built to take advantage of that. Impossible, breathed the pilot of an alien interceptor as a human fighter performed a turn that bent the laws of physics. No living being could survive those forces. The human pilot, Lieutenant Jae-min, pulled 8 Gs in his turn and came up behind the alien ship. His weapons tore through the alien's shields and hull like tissue paper. The alien ship exploded in a ball of flame. Meanwhile, Captain Mi-young's stealth frigate UES Busan had gotten close enough to the alien flagship to launch a boarding action. Lieutenant Colonel So-ra led a team of Earth's finest Marines onto the enemy ship through a breach they'd blown in the hull. The alien crew had never experienced boarding actions. In galactic warfare, ships either won or lost from a distance. The idea of enemy soldiers actually entering their vessel was beyond their understanding. "What are those creatures doing on our ship?" demanded Grand Admiral Korthval as alarms blared throughout his flagship. The human Marines moved through the alien corridors like death itself. They wore armor that could survive in the vacuum of space and breathe poisonous atmospheres. They carried weapons designed to kill efficiently in close quarters. Most importantly, they had trained for exactly this kind of fighting for their entire careers. Lieutenant Colonel So-ra kicked down the door to the alien bridge and found herself facing a dozen terrified alien officers. They had weapons, but they'd never been trained to use them in combat. Their species had been peaceful for so long that they'd forgotten how to fight as individuals. "Surrender your ship," So-ra said through her helmet's translator. Grand Admiral Korthval stared at the armored human warrior in shock. In 30 years of command, no enemy had ever set foot on his bridge. But the real horror for the alien fleet came from watching how humans used their damaged ships. When the UES Mokpo took critical damage to its engines, Captain Lee Soo-jin didn't order his crew to abandon ship. Instead, he aimed his crippled vessel at the largest alien battleship and rammed it at full speed. The alien crew of the battleship watched in terror as the human ship, trailing fire and debris, crashed into their hull. The explosion tore both ships apart, but Captain Lee had made sure his crew evacuated first. The aliens had never seen anyone sacrifice their own ship as a weapon. "They're insane," whispered Commander Ziltek as he watched another human ship use its damaged hull to block enemy fire, while other human vessels moved into position. "They fight like they don't care if they die." But it wasn't that humans didn't care about death. It was that they cared more about winning. Every human ship captain had been trained to use every advantage, even if it meant destroying their own vessel. Admiral Jin Ho watched the battle from his flagship and felt grim satisfaction. The alien fleet had been built for show, for intimidating peaceful species into surrender. Human ships had been built by a species that had been at war with itself for thousands of years. "Admiral, the alien flagship is trying to surrender," reported his communications officer. "Tell them to shut down all weapons and prepare to be boarded," Jin Ho replied. On the alien flagship, Grand Admiral Korthval faced Lieutenant Colonel So-ra and her Marines. He had lost over 100 ships in less than 2 hours. His formation was broken, his crews were panicked, and enemy soldiers were standing on his own bridge. "I surrender," he said through the translation system. "Please no more killing." But Sora had been monitoring the battle communications. Your ships are still firing on our vessels. Order them to stop immediately or we'll resume combat. I'm trying, Korthval protested. But many of my commanders can't believe we're losing to such a small force. They think this is some kind of trick. Sora activated her helmet communicator. Admiral Jinho, the alien commander, claims he's surrendered, but his ships are still fighting. Jinho's voice came back immediately. Tell him he has 5 minutes to get every alien ship to stand down. If they're still firing after that, we'll assume the surrender was a trick and resume full combat operations. Korthval worked frantically to contact his scattered fleet. Many of his ship commanders refused to believe that the flagship had been captured. Others were too panicked to follow orders. A few were too proud to surrender to primitives. When the 5 minutes ended, 87 alien ships were still in combat with the human fleet. Resume attack, Admiral Jinho ordered. What followed was less a battle than a demonstration. The remaining alien ships, already demoralized and scattered, were picked apart by human forces that seemed to be everywhere at once. Human fighters swarmed over alien hulls like insects, finding weak points and exploiting them. Human marines boarded ship after ship, forcing surrenders from crews who had never been trained for close combat. The final alien ship surrendered after watching the UES Daegu, heavily damaged and venting atmosphere, rammed straight through its shields and hull. The alien captain, a proud Saurian warrior, transmitted his surrender as his ship's hull cracked open around him. This is impossible, he said over the communication channel. Your ships should have been destroyed hours ago. Captain, Park Dongsu of the Daegu, his own ship now a floating wreck, replied calmly, You fight to avoid losing. We fight to win. There's a difference. When the battle was over, Admiral Jinho surveyed the results. The human fleet had lost 11 ships and over 400 personnel. The alien fleet had lost 136 ships and thousands of crew members. But more importantly, word of the battle was already spreading across the galaxy at light speed. The species of the Galactic Council were learning that somewhere in a remote spiral arm, a previously unknown civilization had just destroyed the largest military force in galactic history. On worlds throughout the galaxy, military commanders stared at the battle reports in disbelief. How had primitives with inferior numbers and smaller ships achieved such a devastating victory? The answer was simple, though it would take the galaxy years to understand it. Humans hadn't just developed space technology. They had weaponized everything they touched, refined by thousands of years of warfare against the most dangerous enemy they had ever faced. Each other. The Galactic Council was about to learn that there was a difference between having weapons and knowing how to use them. And humanity had just given them their first lesson. The news spread across the galaxy faster than anyone thought possible. Within days, every civilized world had heard the impossible story. A previously unknown species called humans had destroyed Task Force Hegemony, the most powerful military force in galactic history. On the capital world of the Galactic Council, Counselor Prime Veltara stood before the emergency assembly, trying to maintain order as representatives from dozens of species shouted in panic. Order, order, she called, her voice echoing through the massive chamber. We must remain calm and assess this situation rationally. But rationality was in short supply. The Kalarian representative, his blue skin pale with fear, stood and pointed at the holographic display showing the battle results. Rational? They destroyed our most advanced fleet with 47 ships. How is that rational? The Saurian military advisor, General Crixton, examined the tactical data with growing unease. Counselor Prime, our military doctrine is based on centuries of established warfare. These humans fight like barbarians. Effective barbarians, corrected the Hive Queen's representative, clicking her mandibles nervously. They use tactics we've never seen. Ramming attacks, boarding actions, coordinated fighter swarms. Our ships weren't designed for this kind of combat. Counselor Prime Veltara had led the Galactic Council for 20 years, but she had never faced a crisis like this. The entire foundation of galactic civilization was built on the assumption that the Council's military was supreme. Now that assumption lay in ruins. What are our options? she asked her advisors. We could assemble another fleet, suggested the Calarian representative. Larger this time, 1,000 ships. General Crixton shook his head. With what? Half our member species are already recalling their fleets to defend their homeworlds. They're terrified these humans will attack them next. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Lee Hyun-woo stood in his office overlooking the city of Seoul, reading reports that seemed like something from a dream. Humanity had gone from being alone in the universe to being feared across an entire galaxy in less than a week. Mr. President, the alien survivors are requesting a formal meeting, said his secretary, entering with a stack of documents. How many survivors? About 3,000, sir. They're being held on our prison ships, but they're asking to be treated as prisoners of war, not criminals. President Lee nodded. Set up the meeting. And get me Admiral Jin-ho. We need to decide what to do next. Admiral Jin-ho arrived an hour later, still wearing his battle-worn uniform. He had become humanity's most famous military commander overnight, though he seemed uncomfortable with the attention. Admiral, what's the status of our fleet? President Lee asked. We're repairing the damaged ships, sir. But more importantly, we're analyzing the alien technology we captured. Their ships are incredibly advanced in some ways, but they're built for completely different kinds of warfare than ours. What do you mean? They're designed for what I'd call gentleman's warfare, sir. Long-range exchanges between heavily armored ships, minimal casualties, formal rules of engagement. They've been fighting like that for so long that they forgot how to fight for survival. President Lee studied the reports from the battle. Human casualties had been heavy by human standards, but almost non-existent compared to alien losses. The difference wasn't just in technology, it was in mindset. What do you recommend for the meeting with their survivors? Admiral Jin-ho thought, carefully. We should show them respect, sir. They're soldiers who followed orders. But we also need to make it clear that we won't be pushed around by anyone, no matter how big their empire is. 3 days later, the formal meeting took place aboard the UES Sejong. Captain Sung Min had been chosen to command humanity's new embassy ship, a vessel that looked peaceful, but carried enough firepower to level a city. Grand Admiral Korthval, now officially a prisoner of war, sat across from Admiral Jin-ho in the ship's conference room. Between them sat translators and diplomatic staff from both sides. Admiral Korthval, Jin-ho began, I want you to know that your wounded are receiving the best medical care we can provide. The alien commander nodded slowly. Thank you. But I must ask, why did you show mercy? In the final battle, you could have destroyed every ship in my fleet. Because we're not monsters, Jin-ho replied. We fight hard, but we don't kill unnecessarily. Your people are unusual warriors, Korthval said carefully. In 300 years of galactic warfare, I have never seen tactics like yours. Where did you learn to fight like that? Admiral Jin-ho was quiet for a moment. We learned from each other. Humans have been at war for most of our recorded history. Every weapon, every tactic, every strategy we used against you was developed, fighting other humans. The translation took a moment to process, and when it did, Korthval's expression changed to something like horror. You mean your own species taught you to fight like that? War was so common on our world that we had to get good at it to survive. We've been refining the art of combat for thousands of years. Ambassador Ki-wan, humanity's newly appointed representative to the galactic community, leaned forward. Admiral Korthval, we want you to carry a message back to your galactic council. What message? Humanity wants to join the galactic community as equals, not as subjects. We're willing to share our knowledge, our technology, and our protection, but we won't be ruled by anyone. Korthval considered this. The council will want guarantees that your species won't attack other worlds. We've never attacked anyone who didn't attack us first, Ki-wan replied. But if someone threatens humanity or our allies, we'll respond with everything we have. The meeting lasted for hours, establishing the basic framework for human-alien relations. When it was over, Korthval was given command of a small ship and allowed to return to the Galactic Council with humanity's terms. As he prepared to leave, he asked Admiral Jinho one final question. Your species has such advanced military technology. Why didn't you expand across the galaxy already? Jinho smiled grimly. Because we were too busy fighting each other. It's only in the last 50 years that we've had peace on Earth long enough to look at the stars. When news of humanity's terms reached the Galactic Council, the response was mixed. Some species wanted to reject human demands and prepare for war. Others pointed out that humanity had just destroyed their most powerful fleet and showed no signs of being aggressive conquerors. The debate went on for weeks, but it was settled when the first attacks came from outside the galaxy. An unknown enemy from beyond the galactic rim began raiding outer worlds, using technology and tactics that the Council's forces couldn't counter. The desperate plea for help reached Earth within days. President Lee Hyun-woo read the message in his office, surrounded by his advisors. Mr. President, they're asking for military assistance, reported Foreign Minister Park. Species that wouldn't even talk to us a month ago are begging for human protection. What are Admiral Jinho's recommendations? He says we should help. Sir, not because we owe them anything, but because it's the right thing to do. President Lee made the decision that would define humanity's role in the galaxy. Send the Second Fleet to assist, and broadcast this message to every world in the galaxy. Humanity will defend any species that asks for our protection, whether they're our allies or not. Within months, human fleets were patrolling sectors throughout the galaxy. The same ships that had terrified the Galactic Council were now their protectors. Human Marines trained alien security forces. Human engineers helped design new defensive systems. But most importantly, humanity had fundamentally changed the balance of power in the galaxy. No longer could large empires bully smaller species because those species could call for human assistance. The threat of human intervention made diplomacy more attractive than warfare. Captain Sung Min, now commanding the embassy ship UES Jeju at the galactic capital, received daily visits from alien species wanting to establish formal relations with humanity. Captain, said his communications officer, we have another delegation requesting a meeting. This time it's the Vorthon Empire. They're offering a trade agreement. Sung Min smiled. 6 months ago, the Vorthons had refused to even acknowledge humanity's existence. Now they were offering favorable trade deals just to stay on humanity's good side. Schedule the meeting, he said, and remind them that we expect fair treatment for all species in any agreement we sign. As he looked out at the massive space station that served as the galactic capital, Sung-min reflected on how much had changed. Humanity had gone from unknown primitives to the galaxy's protectors in less than a year. But the most important change wasn't in how aliens saw humans. It was in how humans saw themselves. For the first time in their history, they weren't fighting each other. They were fighting for something bigger than themselves, protecting species they'd never met from enemies they'd never seen. Ambassador Kiwan's final report to Earth summed it up perfectly. We came to the stars expecting to find enemies. Instead, we found purpose. The galaxy would never be the same.